Hi guys, you're here with us live through Facebook and also this week on YouTube. We're live streaming. This is the second episode of Pusong Pinoy with Malcolm Conlan. Magandang gabi Filipinas, magandang hapon to everyone in the UK. It's a real honor to be able to join you live again. I'd like to send my special thanks right at the start to Kai and Remit. Thank you for sponsoring this show and supporting this show, and thank you for the creative team behind this. This week we feature Dave Moscrop, and he will tell us his story about how he fell in love with the Philippines, his big support of such acts as Fourth Impact and of course the X Factor, and basically his life story. And I believe this will be helpful to Brits who are considering finding love in the Philippines, and also the story of lockdown as well. Dave had a lot of interesting things to tell us. So let me just start by saying hi to Dave, and it's over to you. I'd like to know a little bit about your background and how you discovered the Philippines, please, Dave.
Hi, Malcolm. Thanks very much for inviting me on your show this afternoon. Magandang hapon and magandang gabi to people in the Philippines. Basically, my first involvement with the Philippines was, as I say, coming up to about 10 years. It was 10 years this Christmas. I have a brother who lives in Singapore. He's lived there for a few years and lives and works. And I went to visit him on Christmas. And as part of the complex, there were a number of carers and nannies, and I got invited to a couple of their Christmas parties, and they're all very friendly, made you very welcome. Even as they'd only met me for a few days, they made me very, very welcome, and you felt there's a lot of warmth there. And obviously that's where it initially started. My first sort of major involvement with the Philippine community and Philippine people. Obviously, I returned to the UK. I'd only really been on social media for about a year or so earlier. So my Facebook friends were fairly low. But over the next couple of years, my network of a lot of Pinoys suddenly started to grow. And that's, as I say, that's initially how my interaction it was. I didn't visit the Philippines for about 3 more years, but obviously I started to build up contacts within the Philippines, Philippine people in other parts of the world, in the Middle East, in Europe, as I say, in Singapore, and it just grew from there initially. As I say, it was only after, as I say, 2 or 3 years, when I was sort of coming up to sort of considering retirement from the Metropolitan Police, that I started to consider, traveling and visiting the country.
That's amazing. Thank you very much for telling us about that introduction. When you first went to the Philippines, tell me a little bit about your impressions and what happened. What did you find about the country that you loved so much?
Right. Well, my first visit, obviously, was I went to meet my wife, Marisa. I met her again on social media, and we, as I say, arranged to meet after many months of communicating on social media. We decided to meet, and as I say, my first visit was straight to Manila, and then onwards down to Davao. Down to Cagayan de Oro. It's the traffic. It's the traffic. I mean, it's the sort of untidiness about it. I come from, like you say, you come from Singapore, which is clinically very clean and very, and then you say you go to the Philippines, and there's a street sellers, there's lots of hustle and bustle on the streets. But as I say, that was, but they always seem to be smiling. They're always coming up to you and making you welcome. I've never felt threatened at all by. Well, I've been in the Philippines, and I've been there obviously not as many times as you, Malcolm, but probably about a dozen times in the last few years, and I've never felt in any danger. But obviously, you know, that's you have to always be careful, but be a bit savvy about things. But I've never actually been always felt comfortable within the country, and I think that's one of the things that obviously made me keep returning with my girlfriend and bonding with my girlfriend. And I think obviously that's why I just continued to go. As I say, I always just keep wanting to go back. As you probably know, it's an amazing country. There's so many islands to see. I think I've seen about 8. That's all in. So I don't think I'll get through them in my lifetime. But as I say, there's 7,000 plus islands, I believe. So like I said, I just, you know, I just kept building up my time with my girlfriend over the last 4, 5 years, 6 years. Just kept going backwards and forwards. My girlfriend stayed in the Philippines. I was the one that travelled to meet her as often as I could. Obviously, the long distance relationships are they are quite difficult, but you got to believe and trust, and you know, just be strong and just have faith in them, because they do work. I'm proof of a long distance relationship of basically nearly 7 years. So you know, if anybody's contemplating that, then from my perspective, you'll do it. But you must trust each other and believe in each other.
What can you say about the scam relationships? As I'm sure you'll know, there's a lot of online dating. There's a lot of situations where there are these websites for dating, and unfortunately, a lot of people pretend that they're British. You might get some picture on Google of some white person with an English-sounding name, and then lots of Filipinos actually start communicating with them, but it turns out they're actually being scammed, and these are fake relationships. What can you say about that, and how can you prove both ways that you're in a real relationship? This is one of my biggest concerns.
Right. Well, I mean, the way I do run my social media, I've only ever had one Facebook, you know, and I don't. And I have pictures generally of myself, or you know, there's a lot of objects on there. You never see anybody. There's very little movement on some of them. You can generally look at them, and you can see where there's what sort of, if they're hidden. If everything's hidden, I'm very cautious. Very cautious if there's not any pictures or regular pictures. Obviously, they're you can sometimes tell, because you'll get people. Some are quite direct to you by messenger. You know, got to watch out. Not just the obviously scam marriage; it's the scam finances as well. You know, trying to, as I say, get money out of you. And quite often you can some are very direct. In no straight way. Some will sort of be a little bit more subtle about it, and then they'll hit the question. But in relation to, I mean, as I say, talking about when I left Singapore and had this network of Philippine people, and some of them moved, and some of them would come to me for advice, saying they'd received a request from somebody, and I'd even try and look on the profiles for them. But I always said, any doubt, just don't entertain them, block them, just straight away block them. Don't get into any conversations. And try and do that. But as I say, it's always very difficult. But yeah, that's how I tend to treat, you know, the people on Facebook. Look at the profiles. If everything's hidden, why are they hiding it all? I know obviously some of it might be private, but why are they hiding everything? You'll see maybe a couple of photographs. It might be the same photograph. There might be very little movement on them. Duplications, I'm always concerned about. As you're aware, seems to be a lot of Facebook duplications coming up. But no, I tend to sort of.
There's a useful tool as well, Dave. There's a useful tool, Dave, as well, called reverse image search. And what reverse image search is, you probably know, take an image of Facebook, So when you look at somebody's image, if it's very staged, for example, like model, you can see it's a very professional image. The thing to do is to basically grab that image, stick it on Google, type in reverse image search, and you can
Yeah.
see that image. And if that image appears on multiple sites, you know it's fake. So myself and yourself, we're both happy to receive messages from Filipinos. Maybe they're worried about somebody they've met online, because the
Yeah.
reality is thousands of pounds a year, thousands of pounds, properties are given away to scammers overseas, and it's a real target. And everyone wants a fairy tale story of your story. Filipino meets a British guy, have a relationship, they get married. But to be honest with you, for many people, it's a fruitless dream. You know, you've got this incredible story. So what's the process? Because I understand now you've got married to your partner. What's the process? Is it difficult? What's the process with the visas? And tell me a little bit about that.
Right, Malcolm. Yeah, well, basically, I mean, obviously, I've been in a relationship since March 2013, and obviously finally got married in March this year. I We made sort of a conscious effort to do certain things before we actually started the wedding process. I made sure, because obviously, I know you know about the annulments. They're so costly to have an annulment in the Philippines, and that's the big stumbling block. Because obviously, it's not. You know, I got divorced a few years ago, and it's relatively, you know, compared to our economies, it's a relatively small amount I paid in comparison to what you'd pay in the Philippines for an annulment. You know, you're talking of several thousand pounds for an annulment. So that's quite a stumbling block for people. So I obviously said to Marisa that I would obviously work through that first, and then obviously that gives you the freedom then to start the process. But obviously we've got an ongoing long relationship, so there's lots of emails, lots of photographs. So if they're coming to want to check whether there's any authorities want to check to protect the Pinoy, then obviously there's a lot of background in our relationship, particularly through social media. So you know that's always good to have a lot of, if you require it. I've never had to require it; they never asked me for it yet. But that's something to probably have as a bit of background, so that you can prove that obviously this is a solid relationship. You love the person, and you've got the right intentions. Once the annulment was done, then we obviously were saving up then to start the process of the wedding. So obviously need a marriage license. Obviously that, as part of that, I need to get an affidavit from the British Embassy in Manila, which I did, which cost them about, say, I think about £50. You have to make an appointment. It's very simple. You just go online and book an appointment, and go to the embassy in Manila, and you'll go through your paperwork, you swear your affidavit, and then they stamp it, and that's part of the marriage application process. The only thing I found is that I had this affidavit done, and we were going to apply for the marriage license later that year, but there was a bit of a misunderstanding about where we could apply for the marriage license. But we were in Cebu at the time, and we have to actually be in the Marisa's hometown. So we couldn't get back in time to do that process. So obviously the time was a bit of a time lag, and it was about a year before we started the process again. And although the visa, the affidavit doesn't expire, obviously there's quite a time lag. So once the Philippine authorities like to see it fairly close to the actual application date, so the checks are done, so they actually asked for another one. So I had to quickly fly back to Manila and get another affidavit. That's something just to be aware of, as far as doing the visa, getting the affidavit. Try and continue the application, not leaving much more than a few months, a few weeks. I was over a year before I went to do the application, and they just said, "Oh no, you'll need another affidavit." once that was done, it was a matter of applying, obviously, the affidavits from the UK for my decree absolute, but obviously has to be checks done within the Philippines to see whether, obviously I've been to the Philippines before and married somebody in the Philippines and I'm hiding it. So obviously there's what's called a CENMAR, certificate of non-marriage, to obviously they do a search for you. So that's the two sides of it. So one, they do search to see that you're not already married, to protect. And same with Marisa, she has one done as well. And that's really that's the application going through for the license. Once that's granted, yeah. Sorry, Malcolm, go on. Yeah.
I was going to say it's quite a process then, but basically the fact is now you are married, which is fantastic, and I've seen some amazing pictures of your wedding as well. So I'd like to send my congratulations. Now, normally what happens is British guy meets Filipino, they have an online relationship for a few years, maybe they get married, and then in a week they return home, or within 2 weeks they have to return home to the UK, and then they have to wait years and years and years until this process is being completed. But I think what's really interesting about your story is, of course, very sadly, we have COVID-19, and it's absolutely terrible. I know it's affected the lives of many people and many businesses back home in the Philippines, but also here. And of course, I'm sure we both feel very sorry for the tragedy that so many people have lost their lives. And of course, so many of our incredible Filipinos nurses have lost their lives as well. But in your case, you were caught up in the Philippines during lockdown. And as a result of you not being able to get back, you had this honeymoon period of, say, 10 or 11 weeks, which was a bit of a consolation for you. Tell me a little bit about that. And what was lockdown life in the Philippines? Did you feel safe? Were you able to get the food provisions you needed? And how was spending this extra time together? How did that help you?
Yeah, it was, as I say, you mentioned it already, that yeah, it's been some tragic times for people, and it's very difficult for the last few months. But there are, I can, God bless, has been a positive from this. Yes, I should have returned within days of my wedding, but in fact, as I say, I was there an extra couple of months, and it actually gave us an opportunity to actually bond properly. Although we've been together seven years, we obviously it was the longest I'd stayed in the Philippines was a month, and it might be several months again before we'd see each other again. So it was nice, and it was good that we actually, and obviously we're in a condo together, so your personalities and it, yeah, I mean, lockdown is difficult for everybody. You're in your own, in a small space, but it tested us both, but it just showed that it gives us time to get to know each other even better, and our personality, especially in this lockdown period. As far as lockdown's concerned, yes, I didn't feel unsafe. I mean, obviously, I was checking on what was happening in the UK. And then obviously we got different rules in the Philippines. As I say, I did start going out exercising, but the police stopped me in the street after a few days, saying I couldn't do it. But that was fine. They're very polite. They even were smiling. They just said, and obviously just say, "Sorry, sir," and I returned and I never went out again exercising, because obviously it was still not been lifted. Obviously the curfew was put in place fairly early on, 8-10 hour curfews. You had an exit pass, so basically it was one person out to go and get food. I tended to sort of just go out, just to get food or a bit of medication if required, and that was it. I just usually go out about once a day, just to the shops, obviously with masks. We had masks to wear, because obviously it was compulsory then to wear masks. They wouldn't allow you in the shops, so basically no mask, no entry. So you couldn't go in the bank, you couldn't go in the supermarket. And that's obviously given me an opportunity to get used to the mask, because I understand that's going to be coming into the UK as a compulsory on public transport. And obviously I'm used to wearing one, so it's become part and parcel now of wearing one when I go outside. Felt safe, no issues from where I was. I mean, it's fairly central, but it was relatively quiet. Very little traffic around, and very little open on, but the walking I did, people were, as I say, friendly, obviously keeping the distance. They were all pretty much aware of obviously social distancing. Didn't hear of anything much other than, I think, one, there was the church service took place in the town, and they got arrested because obviously you couldn't have so many congregating in the church service. But only heard that once, and then there was no follow. I've not heard any follow up on it. So whether it was just warnings given, but no, that's from that point of view. You got used to. Got used to the actual the restrictions in place. Adjusting to obviously eating and trying to find somewhere to exercise, because obviously I love my food, but I do try and keep myself fit. So it's finding something to exercise in, but fortunately I'm living in a 27-story tower block, so I could use this. I thought, right, I'll use the stairs. So I started using the stairs to keep myself fit, just quite every day, just for a few minutes, going up and down. And eventually I went up to the top floor, down to the bottom, then back to the 7th floor. So, and I was doing that, and then I got stopped again by security saying, "Oh, you can't use this. This is this is an exit, a fire exit. So if you fell and you were injured, and then there was a problem, and you're causing a blockage." So that was fine. It was fine again. They're doing the job, and I just said, no problem, I'll find. So next thing, I was running along the corridor backwards and forwards, and that's what I did for the last month, and it kept increasing the number of times to run up and down the corridor. So I managed to obviously discipline myself in that point, and that kept me focused. What else? Candy Crush got a bit of a battering, and obviously YouTube and
yeah, no, that's amazing. That's really interesting to hear. Thank you for that. Thanks very much as well for sharing that insight, because a lot of Brits and a lot of tourists of the Philippines are really worried now, particularly with flying, and I guess we'll come on to that. But if we can just take a short break right now, and we'll join you again and talk more about basically your life and your experiences, and also we'll be talking about the X Factor and your love of Pinoy artists. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Hi, we're Fourth Impact, and hello to all the viewers of Pusong Pinoy with Malcolm Conlan.
Special greetings to Sir Dave Moscrop. Thank you, Sir Dave, for always supporting us.
And of course, congratulations on your recent wedding with Tita Marisa!
Congratulations!
Thank you for always supporting Fourth Impact, and please, you can download our new song, No More.
And all digital platforms.
Yes. And you can follow us on all our social media accounts. Just type Fourth Impact, and everything is verified. So,
Thank you! God bless everyone. Keep safe.
That was a bit of fun, and I hope you don't mind, Dave. I kind of was able to speak to Fourth Impact, and they're absolutely amazing. And that brings I will get into that. You know, thanks so much. I'm so grateful to Fourth Impact for doing that for us.
Yeah, no, that was a really lovely surprise. I was a bit gobsmacked by it, but no, it was wonderful to get that message. Well done. That's brilliant. Thank you, Fourth Impact. Thank you, Malcolm.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say you've got a love of Pinoy celebrities and Pinoy artists, and I'd love to see the day that maybe a big Filipino talent would win maybe one of the big shows in the UK, like the X Factor, because of course, as we know, all Pinoys Filipinos can sing, and of course you've got some outstanding bands in the Philippines. Of course, Fourth Impact, already singers and songwriters, and they have a great career in the Philippines, and they got that far, but they just didn't quite make it. What's your sort of reasoning behind this? And you know, tell me a little bit about your love of Filipino artists on the X Factor and your story.
Right. Well, I've got obviously the X Factor. I'm a big X Factor buff. I've watched it right from the inception in 2004. It was only, as I say, obviously my partner's Filipina, and I was watching the X Factor in 2015. I was just sat in my lounge watching, and I just saw Fourth Impact come up. Didn't realise obviously they were there. Didn't know of them until I saw them do this amazing, incredible audition, which basically took the roof off Wembley, as Cheryl Cole said, and they got an amazing reception, and that obviously that audition has gone on to become the most watched video ever. I think it's running about 163 million views at the moment on X Factor. That's, as I say, I didn't expect. I just saw it on TV. I'd never actually seen. Last time I saw a live show was several years ago when Rebecca Ferguson and actually One Direction were performing, and they were runner up and third to Matt Cardle. That was the last time I saw any sort of live X Factor. But I was in Lancaster at the time, and I noticed that Fourth Impact, just after they left the X Factor, they were doing a meet and greet in London. So just had one of these initial mad moments. I thought, I was living in Lancaster. I got the train down to London after work, and basically it was only really an hour or two in London. The train was late as well, so it was a quick rush job to go and see Fourth Impact in Notting Hill. And as I say, I met them, had some photographs taken, as you've seen, and then I went back to Lancaster again and went straight back to work in the morning with very little sleep. And some people thought I was crazy. Then a few months later, I decided to leave the job and return to London. But I didn't work for a few months, and obviously then I just took an interest in following Fourth Impact, and that's how it all started. I was fortunate to be able to follow them around, go to various barrier festivals, various events that were obviously part of their post X Factor contract, and you know, it went on for a few months. I even travelled to Dubai a couple of times to see them, and obviously it was nice to be able to celebrate, be there to celebrate Selena's 21st at the time. So, you know, that's how that sort of continued. Obviously, they're back in the Philippines, as you mentioned now. They've already plugged the single, but I'm going to plug it again. No More, that's their first original single. It's a brilliant single. So obviously, anybody out there, check it out. Yeah, check it out.
I agree. I've listened to it. You know, yeah.
Mm.
I've watched it myself. Just have a comment, by the way. So we'll just flash the comment on the screen. And this is from Tony Davis, who I believe is one of your friends. It's my pleasure to work with Dave Moscrop and Marissa in supporting, promoting, and protecting a wonderful Filipino girl group which showed the world how nice the wonderful Filipino people are. I'd like to wish them a long and happy lifetime together. God bless Dave and Marissa. I'm sure that's one of your friends, Tony. Tell me about this.
Yeah, Tony's, as I say, funny enough, I didn't know Tony until obviously the common denominator was Fourth Impact. But actually, Tony lives in Preston, which obviously was only a short distance from I originate from in Lancaster. But we became sort of, and Tony is, we're still avid followers, supporters of Dreamers, as we're called. That's the generic term for all the fans around the world, the Fourth Impact. And yeah, everyone's they've been very supportive. I can mention many other people as well. But no, Tony's been really supportive, and has always come along and helped, and we've sort of put sort of posters together and gone to sort of some barrier festivals when they were promoting their Australia New Zealand tour. We were putting some banners around the barrier festivals in the UK to try and obviously drum up some interest. So yeah, no, they're wonderful supporters, Fourth Impact, and thanks again, Tony, for your lovely message.
It's great that we have such common love of the Philippines, the Filipino people, and of course Pinoy is so talented, and also you have Maria as well, who did very, very well. Just tell me a little bit briefly about her story as well, for those of you who don't sort of follow.
Right. Well, Maria, I was very fortunate to see Maria before, obviously Fourth Impact came in. I went in post X Factor, but I was in the Philippines for Fourth Impact's Rise Up concert in relation to fundraising. We had a family house badly damaged, and raising funds. So they had numerous artists there, and that's where I first came across Maria. She was performing there, and I heard her sing 2 or 3 songs, and I thought, wow, that she's got some voice. And it was only when I got back, I was told I met her auntie, Edna, and was told that she's actually auditioned for X Factor, which is coming over. So that's how initially that started, and I was very fortunate. And I just like to say thank Vangi and Freddie for allowing me to obviously be in this sort of inner circle, so to speak, and watch her progress through the early stages of X Factor, and that famous audition of Purple Rain that Simon gave infinity yeses to, and again that rose the roof in Wembley, and that's how, as I say, she's produced an album, and singles, and they're all available on the normal digital platforms. So thanks again, Maria. As I say, Maria's in the Philippines at the moment, and we just keep monitoring what they're doing, and they were just amazing. It was wonderful time it was great to spend time with them while they're in the UK.
That's amazing. Thank you. Just a couple more questions before we finish off. And my next question is, tell me about your future plans. A lot of people, when they start relationships with somebody in the Philippines, the massive hurdle is bringing their partners or their wives over to the UK. There's so many costs in terms of immigration, earning this £18,600 minimum income per year. Tell me a little bit about your plans now, and also would you then plan to maybe retire in the Philippines after spending a few years here?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, I mean, we've obviously had the extra bonus of 2 months together. We'd already just after we got married, we we applied for a family permit, which it's a short term, it's a 6-month permit to travel to the UK. You can go backwards and forwards as many times as you want, but it's a 6-month application. That's what we're doing at the moment. We've provided all the documentation. The application is sitting. It's just because obviously COVID, they've suspended the interview, the actual appointment system, and I'm just waiting for that to be reinstated. All being well, like I said, I'm a very positive guy, and I'd like to think that we've provided all the evidence as far as I can see that we need to. So I would like to think that we should be a positive outcome once you can get the appointment placed. I don't think I can't remember the exact cost, but I think this you can like do what they call a speed. I think it's like a rapid visa application, and it's something like about 14,000 pesos, or you can just let it normally take its course, and it's maybe about £50 to £100 or something like that for this family permit. Obviously, it meant that I've not looked at the other options, but I know you just say they are very costly, or they can be very costly. Looking at other methods, but obviously I'm in my early 60s, probably looking to retire within the next 3-4 years max. So obviously, any long term, trying to bring somebody here permanently, because my plan really is to go and retire. I think, subject to being fit and healthy, to retire to the Philippines. So I don't think anything, long term. So this temporary permit, or even if I can get, I think you can extend it as well. I think there's an extension. I can't remember. It's 2 or 3 years you can do. I'm not looking at sort of apply for get permanent residency and things like that. So hopefully, being a midwife, she shouldn't have any difficulty getting work here.
Be much
so
easier.
yeah,
Desperate short of midwives in the UK as well, in the NHS. So it's obviously, if she takes all the relevant exams and she did want to stay here, it's a fantastic route for her. And I'm sure if anyone had any questions, immigration sort of questions about your story or how you managed, I'm sure you'd be very happy to take those questions, would I, on Facebook. Finally, you eventually managed to fly home. You told me you nearly missed your flight. And what was it like? How much did your flight home cost you? Just briefly, just tell us about.
Okay, Malcolm. Well, basically, I'd booked my first flight. Obviously, was cancelled. The first 2 flights, my return flight by Etihad was cancelled, and my Cebu Pacific flight from CDO to Manila was cancelled. Still waiting for refunds on those. I've chased them up. Hopefully sometime this month I should hopefully get some refunds on those. I basically looked for the flight, kept checking on Skyscanner, picked up a flight from Gulf Air, which was relatively, I think, about £400 or £500 one way, and that's what I went with. And Cebu Pacific, I did the same, but then they've been pretty good. I mean, I can't, they've been very helpful, they've been very flexible. There's, because obviously when they cancel their flights again for the second time, both of them, they just allowed me. I just altered them, just moved them, no cost, because obviously there was a time period. I think it was till about end of June, July, before you had to start paying differences. So there was no additional cost. The only problem was Gulf Air cancelled at least twice, and I was getting to the point where obviously I'm looking at work, but my colleagues were not currently working, so there wasn't the sort of urgency to get back. So there were flights by the government. I think they were charged about £800 an emergency flight. Now, obviously, I didn't see myself an emergency, and they couldn't guarantee that I could get the flight anyway. But it was quite long-winded. It was you had to get a bus down to Davao, and Davao to Manila, and it was quite a long process. So I only looked at that briefly, but fortunately, I didn't have to follow that route. But as I say, it was a little bit frustrating because you were looking at flights, and there was only a few. When they obviously cancelled, and you're looking again, there was no, one of them might have been £500 or £600, and then suddenly it would double and then triple. So there's like 5 flights varying from about 500 or 600 to about 5,000. I saw one about £5,000 one way, which was crazy.
Yeah.
But
there's so many people stranded there as well. I'm sorry to interrupt you. There's a lot of Brits stranded over in the Philippines as well, even to this day. There are still issues. It's a real concern. And some of these, of course, are our nurses as well. So maybe they're Filipino nurses who maybe haven't got British nationality, but they're working in our NHS and they can't get back to the UK. So I know that the government is working very hard, the Philippine government and the British government, but it's still a long process. And when people obviously take the problem was a lot of it occurred in April. And April is the time where most Pinoys would go home. So they go home thinking it's not going to be too bad, and they've stuck there. But thankfully, in your case, it managed to work out. You know, I'd like to say thank you so much. I'm incredibly grateful. You've gone sideways just for a second.
Oh no!
Somebody,
yeah, somebody interrupted with a call, so I had to cancel it. No, I had to cancel the call. So I don't know who it was.
Well, I just want to say thank you ever so much. You know, it's been amazing talking to you, and both of us, we're very happy to receive any questions on our social media. We're very happy to support in the way that we can. You have an inspiring story, and I'd like to congratulate you both on your marriage and, you know, telling us about your life. And I know you're a keen photographer, and you've been able to share some amazing photos with us. So I'd just like to say thank you very much. And, you know, you can, guys watching, thank you. Thanks so much to Combine Remit as well for sponsoring these episodes. It's very much appreciated. Any final words from you, Dave?
Yeah, just first of all, thank you, Malcolm, for inviting me to give my story. It's much appreciated. I'd also like to make an announcement. Actually, I became a granddad yesterday, and my Natalie and Andrew have, as I say, they've given birth to a boy and a girl yesterday morning, called Finn and Alana. So I'd like to send them love and hugs and wish them all the best. So that's that. And like I say, just say I love my wife and miss her. I know it's readjustment time, but thanks for everything that you've done for me and doing for me. I love you very much and the children, and hopefully it won't be too long before we're together. And I just like to say, just thank number of people, just obviously that I met over the last few years. You know, WNU UK doing amazing work for Luma Kids and other charities. They're absolutely wonderful. I'm not going to mention. I mean, I can mention names, but I don't want to miss anybody. So they know who they are. Star Vision and Ella and Rands, amazing people. Ella's just congratulations on reaching your 1,000 viewers on your TV channel. And as I say, just thank you, everybody. Thanks. Say hello to LNER, my colleagues in LNER. I'm obviously isolating at the moment for 2 weeks. Missing them guys as well, and wish them all well. And we'll be together in about 10 days or so. And as I say, just thank you. Wish everybody well. And thanks to all the frontliners, wherever you are in the world. You know, done amazing work and continue to do amazing work. And I think that's probably about it. Thank you again for your time, Malcolm.
Thank you so much, Dave. It's been a real pleasure, and we look forward to welcoming everybody back to the 3rd episode of Pusong Pinoy with Malcolm Conlan, which is actually this Sunday. Maraming salamat po. Mabuhay Pilipinas.
Impact, and hello to all the viewers of Pusong Pinoy with Malcolm Conlan.
Special greetings to Sir Dave Moscrop. Thank you, Sir Dave, for always supporting us.
And of course, congratulations on your recent wedding with Tita Marisa!
Congratulations!
Thank you for always supporting Fourth Impact, and please, you can download our new song, No More.
And all digital platforms.
Yes.
Yes. And you can follow us on all our social media accounts. Just type Fourth Impact and everything is verified. So,
Thank you. God bless everyone. Keep safe.